You can't beat the classics.
All right, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of You Can't Beat the Classics podcast. So, a couple weeks ago, we followed you up with the very first episode of the podcast. Week 2, episode 2. I've got Ray Charles himself, Sam, and joining us is to talk about this particular film is our very good friend Ken. Hello, Ken.
What's up, everyone?
How is everybody?
All right.
I think Sam is
Feeling
okay.
I'm just enjoying watching this. This is a good time.
Everything's all good. No pun intended for the name of this movie. But yeah, today, so we're going to be talking about going in a little bit of a different direction from the first movie we discussed. Today, we're going to be talking about the 1990 classic, the mob classic might be perhaps, Goodfellas.
Oh yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but yeah, this is definitely up there with like the slogan of this podcast, you can't beat the classics. Like Goodfellas is like a perfect movie to fall into that for me. Now I want to ask both of you guys, do either of you remember the first Sam, I think I know your answer to this, Sam, but do either of you remember the first time you saw Goodfellas?
A month ago.
Oh yeah, for sure.
A month ago.
Yeah, I know. I was a kid. I was definitely a kid. I was like early teens, just right before high school. So I started like getting into like more adult films, more like classic films, things that were more mature, and I just found Goodfellas. I mean, I grew up in a very Italian household, so it was kind of one of those things that it was a rite of passage, really. So, yeah, I fell in love with it, and the older I get, the more meaning it takes on.
Yeah, I swear I must have seen it when it was on AMC one night. You know, I was in my late teens. I probably saw it, but I jumped right in the middle of it, I think. But I think the first part I saw was when like Karen had the gun on Henry.
Oh yeah.
That was the first thing I remember. She's just hysterical after that, and I'm like, what is this?
Can you blame her? Can you blame her?
No, but yeah, I think that was the first time I followed the movie, and then after I ended up finishing it that night, and I said, I gotta watch the rest of this. And sure enough, I was very impressed with it. But Sam has only seen the movie very recently, surprisingly.
Yeah, no, I watched it for the first time a month ago, and it's been on my list because, I'm a cinephile some days, and I'm all over the place. So this one has always went over my radar. I don't know, under my radar, that's the word I'm looking for. So finally, like a month ago, I watched it, and I absolutely understand the hype. I thought it was done really well. I mean, it's Scorsese.
Yep.
I mean, again, the guy's so consistent with his films. You have like an all-star cast of like, De Niro, you have Pesci,
Ray Liotta, a whole bunch of people, yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of anything bad about this movie. If I was to rate it off the bat, I mean, it might even be a perfect 10.
Yeah, I definitely have questions watching it, but no like big gripes. You know, it's a film I like very much enjoy watching. One thing I like to do before we start diving into the movie is let's actually watch the trailer for the movie.
Interesting.
Okay. Which I've never seen before. So like, let's see what they share, and let's kind of go back to like what film trailers were like, back in the 90s. All right, let's take a look.
Never rat on your friends, and always keep your mouth shut.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
Hey, Mom, what do you think?
You look like a gangster.
By the time I grew up, there was 30 billion a year in cargo moving through Idlewild Airport. Believe me, we tried to steal every bit of it.
What do you do?
I'm in construction.
He's not Jewish.
Mazel tov.
For most of the guys, killing's got to be accepted.
Hey, Henry, here's an arm. Very funny, guys. Here's a leg. Here's a wing. What do you like, the leg or the wing?
Yes. I love the
For us,
soundtrack.
to live any other way
Oh, yeah.
was nuts. And we were treated like movie stars with muscle. We had it all just for the asking.
It's gonna be a good summer.
It was a glorious time.
In a world that's powered by violence, on the streets where the violent have power, a new generation carries on an old tradition.
That's a good trailer.
Oh yeah.
Doesn't really share a lot plot wise, and that might be something I kind of miss about trailers these days. Yeah, that was solid. Did you guys know, actually, surprisingly, that this movie, when it had its test screenings, did not do very well?
I did not. I'm kind of surprised to hear that.
Yeah, they actually. I remember I think Scorsese was surprised by it himself, that this film was actually not received very well from the start.
Wow.
But then
This-
somehow it ended up just blowing up.
That happens to some of the best movies out there. I mean, Citizen Kane's one known for, bombing at the box office, and then it's considered like the greatest film of all time. So I can kind of see it with a movie like this.
Fair, yeah.
Especially this is 1990. So at this point in time, you probably have the first Godfather's obviously out, and the second one's out. Again, two of the quintessential mafia films.
Yep.
Probably up until that point.
And three was about to come out soon, I believe.
Right.
Yeah.
And you had till Goodfellas, mob/mafia movies had a very different light on them. They were portrayed very different. This one was a lot grittier than works of the past. Even when you look at stuff like The Godfather, while it's much more of a dramatic film. This one is much darker in terms of taking a real look into a true story. An overall true story. I mean, all this movie was based on real events.
Yeah.
Obviously things are going to be dramatized a bit, but I mean, largely speaking, the events and kind of the lifestyle of that time, of that era, from the 60s, moving up, it was portrayed much more accurately, but also in a much darker, grittier way than the genre had in the past. And that might be a part of that too, where people are expecting, we're going to get another mob movie, but this one was very different.
Yeah, they were romanticized for a period of time.
In a bit, absolutely, especially the older ones. You take even The Godfather, I would say less romanticized than some other ones of its, of the past. The 40s, 50s. But this was, right out the gate, very violent. It was a much more violent and aggressive of a movie.
Yeah, and I think part of that is the fact that this movie might as well be a biography about Henry Hill, who was a real person that was really in the mob and all that. And most of the events of this film are like broadly true. Like I know the whole Billy Bats thing. You saw that happen like almost exactly the way it actually happened in the film. And then another thing too, like the Lufthansa heist was an actual thing that happened,
Right.
and all that. And that's actually still an ongoing investigation, even all these years later.
Right. Right.
It's crazy.
Right. This was the first time the mafia and as a whole and that lifestyle was not portrayed in a way to be honored or celebrated.
Yeah.
This was showing a real dark side of it. And how how some of those people really were.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them include looking at Pesci's character as a madman, an absolute madman.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we see the movie start out with them, pretty much finishing off Billy Bats, but I mean that happens later in the film, so I mean we'll get to that a little later. But so I would say the movie starts out more with Henry's childhood, which actually Scorsese used a lot of his own childhood experiences for this part of the movie.
I think we had this discussion where between Scorsese and Joe Pesci, who grew up around, I believe they're both from the New York, New Jersey area. They saw some of that, dealt with some of that growing up, so bringing that realism into I don't want to say fantasy world, but into a film.
Right,
pretty much
film, yeah. They portrayed something. They knew how to portray the characters in a real way. Not just the characters in terms of the movie, but also the real people, whom they were based on.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, most of the last names have changed, but by and large, the characters portrayed in the film were very close to the characters in real life, the people in real life. And you brought up his childhood. I thought that was a very interesting piece, because one of the things that I think he was trying to show was how people were recruited, especially from the bottom tier, like kind of like the guys that just did the jobs for the higher ups, the guys calling the shots.
Yeah.
Kids on the street who weren't doing well in school, had a broken home, had nowhere to fit in. Hey, you can fit in with us. Here's these easy jobs. You don't really have to do much to do, and we're going to pay you a ton to do it. We're going to give you suits to wear. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of you. Right. We're going to exactly. We're going to take care of you. And then over time, we're going to take care of it. Well, now we're going to need you to go steal some cigarettes. We're going to need you to go blow up a car. You know what I mean?
It's the death of innocence.
Throughout this part, one thing I was wondering is, I'm like, all right, you mentioned the part about like, maybe being from a broken home and like maybe turning to these guys as like an escape, but most of the time I was watching this part of the film, I was wondering, is it where his parents know that, like, his parents care, but they know they can't do anything about it, or is it that they don't care?
Well, you're looking at the early 1900s. Early 1900s, parenting was very different. It was very much a my way or the highway type attitude, and especially in a lot of Italian families. I mean, they showed, kind of, again, his mother was Italian, his father wasn't. But in those kind of older families, like hitting your kids was commonplace. You're not doing well in school, you get hit with a belt, you get whacked upside the head. That was normal. That was commonplace. So he came out and later and said that, hey, like, I as a kid, I today would be diagnosed with things like dyslexia and attention deficit disorder, ADHD, and back in those days, those weren't things you were treated for. You were either a kid that did what he was told, or you were a fuck up. And this kid, had no support with that. So he was just reinforced by getting punished and hit and abused at home. And no one's accepting him, no one's understanding him, no one's like letting him fit in until these guys come along and say, hey, do this, here's some money. You know,
Yeah.
it was interesting how Scorsese showed that.
Yeah, because his parents are not mentioned again throughout the movie.
Right.
You know, so I think it might be more of a thing where he just like, you know, he just didn't feel at home. So, you know, it was more of a reason to turn to this type of lifestyle.
Right.
You know, another thing I actually didn't notice during this part was that, but right from the beginning, I was wondering, all right, who from other mob movies or shows is like probably in this movie? And you see Paulie from The Sopranos right from the start of this movie. And I said, oh, I didn't even know he was there. He looks so different.
That often happens. You get a lot of the same people in different shows and flicks.
Yeah,
and
I was surprised when I looked for them. I was able to find quite a few.
Right.
Yeah, and then we see Henry, you know, grow up, you know, so many years later. Now, this part at the airport where they steal the truck is actually a part where I have a question for the movie. That guy that they steal the truck from, I was like, did the guy at the airport know that they were going to steal it? Cause he goes back into the diner and like he uses the N word, and I'm like, wait, why would he use that for them?
Right.
So like, and he kind of gives him that head nod before he walks into the diner.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, I'm like, was he in on it, and was he just pretending like he didn't know?
Probably.
Like just to cover his ass?
To my understanding, he was in on it. Yeah, but now that you bring it up, it is kind of an interesting thing. Yeah.
Yeah, at first I thought they just stole it just because they could, you know, but now I'm wondering, I think the truck driver was in on it. And then you're introduced to them throughout that restaurant. You meet like so many different people.
Yeah.
I think. And then they're pretty much going over like the beginning of what is going to end up being the Lufthansa heist. And I mentioned this in the last podcast where I was like, you ever have like those actors or actresses like, you know, from like other things, and like no matter who they're playing, they're just that person. I was like, isn't this the guy from Dumb and Dumber?
Oh my God, is it?
Yeah, the one that's popping like the things for his ulcer. Yeah, that's him.
Get out of here.
I don't know his name, but yeah, that's him.
That's awesome. That's my ulcer.
Bills. And then he ends up meeting Karen. Like Joe Pesci's like trying to get him to go out with him. He's with a girl that's prejudiced against Italians. But he ends up going out with Karen a few times, and they end up liking each other and all that.
Is he Jewish?
Only, just a good half. There's one part in this. There's one part where there's one part with Karen. You don't see it a lot in movies anymore. Was like that steady cam shot.
Oh yeah.
When where they're walking to their table. That shot actually, it took 8 times for them to nail that.
Yeah, it was a good scene. It's an iconic scene.
Yeah, that's not something you really see movies do anymore.
That's fair. Yeah.
I thought it was neat.
Yeah.
But like, and Karen's going over like what she likes about Henry and everything like that. Henry's supposed to be 21. Like, Ray Liotta does not look 21, no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta think though. He's gonna play this character from the early 20s to what? We're talking what, late 30s at least?
Yeah.
Late 30s, early 40s at least. You know, because the stint in jail too. That's a whole, while that's its own sequence in the film, like that's still 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So. Yeah, no, it's fair. He definitely doesn't look 21. Then again, how many how many movies are out there where it's all about high school kids and they're like people in their 30s playing high schoolers.
Looking at you, Tobey Maguire.
Or even when they introduce Robert De Niro's character, Jimmy Conway, when they introduce him in the movie, he's supposed to be like 29.
That looks 29.
Oh, really?
That's what 29-year-old looks like.
Yeah.
That could be De Niro, right? Yeah.
You pull him off, man. You look just like him.
Just like him, yeah.
Oh, jeez. All right. Maury's wigs. This is where I call some BS from this commercial. It says Maury's wigs, they don't come off underwater, but you never see Maury's wig like wet in the commercial. I'm like, Maury, you're trying to play everybody.
I think this would be a moment where Scorsese would look at you and say, you know what? You got me. You got me.
I got confused with Maury because like Maury and like Jimmy are going back and forth throughout the entire movie, and I'm like, all right, who owes who money? Like that part you see, like, oh, Jimmy's like, give me the fucking money. You understand? Give me the money. But then later on in the movie, Maury was like, Jimmy, I need my money. I need my money.
Well, that was later from.
That was because of the heist,
right? Yeah. That's because the heist, they got more than they initially thought they were gonna get.
Yeah.
By like 6 times as much, and everybody thought that they were gonna split that evenly. Mm-hmm. Jimmy did not want to split that evenly. He was like, no, this was your cut. But everyone was like, well, that's $6 million. And the more people that were trying to get their even share of the money, the more Jimmy pushed back, aka killed everybody.
The more Jimmy got upset and paranoid and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Some of the best scenes I think in that movie is Joe Pesci just losing his fucking mind.
Oh, absolutely. But the crazy thing is, that's apparently how he really was. In real life, was that nuts.
I mean, when you're dealing with people like that and that kind of money and that kind of criminal underground world, yeah, somebody's got to be like that. If not, you're going to get shot.
There's always one. There's always one.
I totally see him like that in real life. Maybe not like that, like super crazy like that, but yeah, I could. But it's hard not to see now.
From everything I've seen and read, the most accurate portrayal in that movie was Joe Pesci.
Yeah, I could see it.
Like that's nuts. Literally. I could see you be Joe Pesci too, Sam.
Sam, can you do your best Joe Pesci?
No, I don't have that nasally voice like he does. I'll have to work on it, and then I'll get back to you. And then I'll be.
You know what? How could I miss the funny guy scene?
Oh yeah.
That actually really happened to Joe Pesci.
Really?
Yeah, that really happened to him. So, like, I think they found a way to fit that into the movie, really, really well. That's already one of the best scenes of the movie. Just such an Sam, describe watching that part for the first time since you're the most recent.
Especially since I'm sure you've heard that quoted 1,000,000 times in your lifetime before actually seeing it.
I'm going to tell you what I saw. You know what I saw? I saw Ken. Because for the time I've known Ken, you know how many times he's done similar things to me? Like that. He does it.
All
He's
right.
like a funny guy. He'd be like, oh, yeah, I'm not fucking laughing. I'm not fucking laughing right now. I'm like, but it was like verbatim. I'm like, okay, I see where this comes from. I see exactly where this comes from.
I just love that part because there's such an uneasiness that's brought to it so quickly,
Mm.
and then it just as quickly it goes away.
Mm.
So like, as a first time watcher of that movie, like it's one of those things where like if I'm watching it with somebody who's seeing the movie for the first time, like I'm watching that person.
Yeah,
I want to see how they react to it. So now we're getting into Henry and Karen, like starting to get to know each other better, and they're going on vacation together. All this stuff. She runs into the guy that lives across the street from them, and then later on they get into an altercation where she's very upset, and everybody's a tough guy until somebody takes the gun out.
Yep.
Henry takes the gun out on him and beats the crap out of him. I was wondering, I was like, wait, Karen's like, oh, he pushed me out of the car. I'm like, did you ride with him?
Mm.
They don't really explain. They don't really explain that.
Mm.
She's just kind of upset.
Is that the scene where she's seeing that other guy and he goes to his house? Or am I thinking way back?
No, it's the guy that they meet on the boat. Um, they meet him, and they think everything's fine and all that. But then, Henry and Jimmy are beating up Maury after the wig commercial. So then Henry runs out and finds Karen at that telephone booth, and she's like very, very upset.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then that guy in that boat, and then he gives her a ride or something like that, and then they go to his house and break his fucking nose.
Yeah, he must
Yeah.
have. He must have given her a ride because they live across the street from one another. He tried to pull a move on her, and she wasn't having it. So she must have gotten pushed out of the car. Probably as they were going home. I'm guessing. But then that's when you learn. All right, don't mess with Ray Liotta.
That was the moment.
And then we see them end up getting married, and the whole time I'm watching the wedding, I'm like, this is overwhelming, and it's not even my wedding.
Mm.
So many people. Like,
You can
Well-
imagine the amount of people they know and money they have.
Yeah, in a situation like that. Yeah. Yeah, I remember I think there's one point in that where I think Karen's looking at the checks, or some of the money that they're getting.
yeah.
And I think she was just like, it's just, hey, just family friend, family friend or something like that, or their family, Just don't question it, take it, smile and
Yeah.
nod.
Or and then like she's like worried about the bag going missing, and then Henry's like, nah, don't worry about it. I was like, that's the kind of life that these two have. Don't have to worry about money, any of that.
Right, to deal with the devil, though.
Oh yeah, definitely. So now Karen's like starting to meet a lot of the family. She meets a lot of the other women that are part of the family, and I don't know if you guys seen the movie Cape Fear.
Yeah.
But I was like the one at the girl that's like sitting with Karen at like that hostess party. I'm like, that's the girl from Cape Fear.
Dude, you got another one. It's
Yeah.
another one.
I'm like, you really how many when you actually like when you seek out people from other movies, you're like, oh, I know that guy, I know that girl. And I was like, oh yeah, this is the girl that got a piece of her face bitten off in Cape Fear. That's a brutal movie. all those women. I was like, she's talking. Like, Karen's like talking about like, I don't even know how I'm gonna fit in here. Like these women are nothing like me.
Yeah. Imagine that one being tough. She had a rough go of it. Right from the start.
Yeah, that was a tough adjustment for her, I'm sure. But now, the crew meets Billy Bats.
Mm.
This is another big. I think I would say this is like the turning point of the movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely when they meet Billy Bats. Um, one thing I was wondering is I was like, you guys. I mean, even with all the ball busting and all that, and the jokes and like being fresh or whatever and all that aside, I'm like, you know the consequences of killing a made guy. So why do it?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
I mean,
like
there's
you think you don't get caught. It's like,
Some people get too comfortable or paranoid. Maybe
right.
both.
There's
but
arguably more
Tommy's
to the
also a
story.
hothead.
Right.
Yeah.
There's arguably more to the story. I mean, Henry Hill's account there's more details to it.
Yeah.
But either way, it happened. He did it. He lost his temper, and between him and Jimmy, they thought that they were above it. They thought they can get past it. I mean, that's the thing. They were kind of they'd been kind of shooting loose for a while with a lot of other things. So I mean, you get this sense that you're untouchable or just don't care. Especially Tommy, like, just didn't really care
Yeah.
who you were if you crossed him. You know?
Yeah, I think that's definitely the mentality that he had. But like, yeah, being such a hothead too, I was like, mentioning the shine box and all that, and I was like, yeah, this guy's got what's coming to him, even if he is a made guy.
Right. But I mean, that's kind of. I mean, that was the thing. Like, if you were made, then I mean, that was kind of immunity. That was immunity.
Yeah.
So I mean, and I think part of it too. I mean, the story goes is that while 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 Bats was in prison, Tommy was taking care of some of his other works like bookkeeping and stuff.
Mm.
And he was out of prison. He wanted to do that again. He wanted his job back. And I think there was potentially at least some kind of ulterior motive there too. Whether it was planned or not, I don't know. But I mean, there was definitely something else there that could have sparked that. But that's
Yeah,
the
and
thing. You're made. You're immune. So
one of the things I was wondering is like when they're beating up Billy Bats and like you see Tommy put the gun in his mouth. I'm kind of like, what happens there? I'm like, the gun definitely doesn't go off because you see that Billy's still alive like later on, like he's still alive in the trunk.
right.
So like they don't show it on screen but you see the gun go across the floor with all the bullets, and I'm like, but you kind of almost hear like a gun go off.
Mm.
So I'm like, what happened there?
Yeah, I don't think they ever
Yeah.
actually shot him.
No, only when he was in the trunk.
Right.
That's it.
They probably, yeah, and the thing is that the whole point, Jimmy was the one to kind of be like, we're hiding his body. The plan was to hide him so that nobody would find out about it because they knew what they did.
Yeah.
That was the other thing. They knew what they did. So, and that's the thing, because even in the movie, Jimmy was kind of casual about this whole thing. Was kind of sparked in the movie as, you know, just kind of Tommy lost his temper, and Jimmy was a little more casual about this one.
Yeah,
You
he
know,
was. He was kind of like, hey, Billy. I mean, you insulted him like quite a bit. So
right,
I can't really control what happens next.
right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Rather than he's usually the voice of reason, like Tommy, you can't do that. You know, kind of holding him back.
Yeah.
And this time he wasn't. He was in on it.
Like Tommy's like, oh, I didn't want to get blood on your floor. You definitely got blood on the floor.
Yeah, because they didn't want evidence.
Well, like, would you believe, like, this is one of the times, like, somebody dies in the movie. Would you believe Goodfellas is, like, it gets, like, that reputation of being a violent movie. There's actually only 5, like, murders, like, deaths in the movie.
Well, actual murders that you see actually happen.
Yeah, if you
Yeah.
count the Latanza stuff, because that happens off screen,
Right.
it would be more like 10. But still, that's actually a low body count.
Right.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. I mean, I think it's the manner in which you see people die. I mean, we're not talking about, you know, some kind of John Wick thing where it's all, you know,
Choreographed.
right.
Yeah.
It's gratuitous violence. This is very gritty, dark.
Yeah.
Ugh, like it hits you. Every single one of them is brutal. It's gruesome because there's a lot of like, uh, there's a lot of darkness surrounding each and every one of those deaths. Even and that's the thing. We started by watching the trailer, which had Layla in it, and anytime I hear that song, and it's such a wonderful song, I
Yeah.
love that song. Like every time I hear that song, what happens is that scene comes in my head, and I just start seeing all the dead bodies, and I'm like, ugh.
Yep.
It just gives me chills. Because even then, you didn't see any of them die, but you kind of you're very uncomfortable with
I
it.
think
You know?
I think the song for me, it actually in like a like really weird way, it like helps me like visualize like how like the death's actually happening
Mm.
in a like sick like weird way. But yeah, whenever I hear that song, it's the exact same thing for me.
It's just such an interesting choice for that scene. Was that song? Just I mean,
Yeah.
because the song is essentially a love song. It's an ode to someone's love, you know, and it's visually in this movie a scene showing really gruesome death. It's just I think that's what leads to a lot of like the uneasiness for me because the tone of the song does not match up with what you're seeing, so it just makes it feel dark.
I know that even before I know Scorsese had the soundtrack of this movie already in his head, like before they even started it, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah, like he already knew, and he's like, no, these are the songs like I want to hear in this movie,
Mm.
and like what fitting choices there were. Not even just Layla, but like even some more ones. Like Cream was a good choice
Mm-hmm.
for that one part. I think they threw the Rolling Stones in there at one point.
Name a Scorsese movie that doesn't have the Rolling Stones.
Very true.
I mean, he did a Rolling Stones live concert movie.
Oh, he did. I didn't know that. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
interesting.
Wow.
Actually, I think I think I'm pretty sure "Gimme Shelter" like starts playing like as like right when the cocaine like start pops up.
Mm.
One thing I want to ask you guys really quick is like, where do you think Henry's downfall begins.
Oof.
I think it's right when he's like starting to like go out with these different girls behind Karen's back.
His downfall.
Yeah, I would say either it's that, like when he's starting to go out with, when he's starting to have like these side chicks, or it's when he's starting to get into like selling like narcotics.
I think that's when things spiral. Is
Yeah.
when he starts getting into drugs, because that was also a big no-no. I mean, that's
Yep.
I mean, that's exactly why, we had to hide it from Paulie.
Mm-hmm.
And and one of the reasons why at the end of the movie, like he became an informant, is he knew that because that was all exposed, Paulie wasn't going to have it. He was gonna kill him just for that alone.
Mm-hmm.
And aside from that, Jimmy had it out for him. So he knew that. But that's when things started to spiral. But I mean, his downfall, I mean, again, as a character, or when he just had no fucking shot. Once 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 he had the club where Bats was killed, that, I mean, once he had that was there was no leaving, because that immediately became a hangout spot, which that was it. The moment he became a witness to Bat's murder, done. What do you do
Yeah.
now? You're in.
Yeah.
You're in it. You can't get out. He's
Yep.
done. That, and I agree with what you said before. That was a very pivotal moment for a lot of reasons. One being Henry's kind of like witness to a murder, and that's it. Like, he can't get out of this life. There's no chance for this anymore now.
Mm-hmm.
He's in. Obviously, for Tommy, it's kind of sealed his fate. So, yeah, I think there's a couple ways to look at it.
I think I would probably argue, I mean, is it Bats? I'm thinking of where they got a little sloppy. I feel like they might have, they probably got a little sloppy with that. But then I think when the heist happens, because now you're involving, and there's a couple things that happened with the heist that I vaguely remember, where they told a couple of guys to do a couple of things, and they got carried. Oh, the guy shows up with his wife in the big fur coat, already spending the money, and then immediately it's like, well, we got to just fucking kill everybody who was involved with this. Samuel L. Jackson included, by the way.
You know what's interesting about that is, like, we were kind of going ahead a little bit, but like, yeah, when Jimmy's like starting to get paranoid after the heist and everything like that, and he's worried about getting pinched, and like somebody that was in on the heist doing the wrong thing, like buying something they're not supposed to, making a really big purchase. I thought most of the times I was watching this movie, I was like, oh damn, I was like, Jimmy really is a sick person. He's killing off all these people that he was around, just because he's worried about himself. But during the movie, you find out Henry is the one that gave him the tip to do that.
To do the heist, or to off everybody?
No, to off everybody after the heist.
Hmm.
Henry's the one that kind of pointed him in that direction. So, I mean, maybe it was because Henry was worried, maybe in a way himself, so it was like, okay, maybe I point Jimmy in this direction, and it kind of gets him off my back a little bit.
Probably. That might have something to do with it, too. Interesting.
But yeah, that was a wild thing, just having everybody picked off like that.
Yeah.
Here's another person that I found that you very easily recognize from the mob films, Spider.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, was he in something else?
Oh.
I was gonna say, we're gonna add another one to the list.
Yeah.
He's in
The Sopranos.
Wait, is he? Oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah, he's one of the main characters of The Sopranos.
I haven't watched Sopranos in ages.
But yeah, he's playing a totally different character in this. He got a more serious part in The Sopranos. But like Tommy shoots him in the foot. It's like, he got shot in the foot. Big deal. I wouldn't see it as a big deal. Oh.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Another event that actually happened.
Yeah. And like, when they cut back to Spider with the bandage on his foot and all that, and he like tells Tommy to go fuck himself. I'm like, all right, Spider, I don't think you should have said that to the crazy man that just shot you in the foot.
Right.
But yeah, he kind of learns the hard way. All right, yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, I don't think he learned. Yeah, because he died.
Because he's dead.
He's yeah. Yeah, it's another crazy one. I mean, that's the moment. I mean, Henry Hill describes that one as the moment he learned how truly psychotic Tommy was. That one haunts him. Well, haunted. He is now gone as well.
Henry has this mindset throughout the movie that he's just like totally, and he's trying to tell Karen this too. Like he's just invincible. Like, but he's really not. Like Karen knows exactly what he's doing. Karen knows that he's seeing these other women and all that, and she she has every right to go crazy over it, which she certainly does.
And I'm sure there's a lot. I mean, again, a movie can only show so much. I mean, you can only imagine what that household was like day in, day out, too, to make her snap like that. I mean, especially with with drugs around constantly.
Oh yeah, yep. Yeah, she was doing some good detective work there.
Yeah.
But eventually, Paulie and Jimmy are like, "Nah, you got to stop this. Like, you gotta take a break, but then you got to go back home, because otherwise she's just gonna keep doing this." This is where Henry ends up in jail, though.
Yeah.
And this is another big question I had for the movie. I was like, there's no way jail is like this for the wise guys, is it? But it is. Or it was, I should say. Maybe not as much anymore, but it was.
Yeah.
And I was like, really? Yeah. But you read into it a little bit more, and I think they had a lot more control back in the 70s and all that. But yeah, it was just simply just bribing somebody, and these guys had their own part of the prison that nobody else was in.
Yeah. I'm sure they took some kind of liberties in the movie, but yeah, by and large, I mean, yeah. Pretty accurate.
Yeah, I was like, that was just crazy to me.
Yeah. They had all, I mean, they controlled the judges, they controlled the airports, they controlled the politicians. It only made sense that they controlled the prisons.
Yeah, this is wild to me that's what it was. Now he's gotten out of jail, and this is where he starts really diving into like the drug stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I was like, these drugs, it might mean money, but I think this is definitely worse than when you were cheating. Because this is starting to mess up your mind.
I mean, it's just he's continually spiraling. I mean, to be selling drugs, which he knew was a huge problem. If anyone, especially especially Paulie, found out, was a huge problem.
Yep.
And still, anyway. So yeah, I think that continues to speak to this kind of mentality of feeling invincible. But the thing is that he not only was he not invincible, he really wasn't. He really didn't have much power in that world. Overall,
Yeah.
he was constantly skating by and barely surviving by the skin of his teeth.
Mm-hmm.
He had no power, really. He was involved. He was there. It's not like he was a nobody, but he certainly wasn't a guy calling shots. But acted like he was invincible. He tried to almost, in a way, kind of fake it till he made it. He continued to spiral.
Yeah, I mean, he should have listened to Paulie right when he caught him, right then and there.
Yeah, probably.
But then you hear the Rolling Stones start playing, and you see the cocaine, and you realize, yeah, he was never gonna listen.
Interesting thing about a Scorsese movie: anytime you hear the Stones playing, it's important. You need to be watching.
Yeah.
You got me wondering. You continue. I need to. We're gonna look at something while we continue. This is in regards to what Ken just said.
It's gonna have something to do with Scorsese and the Stones, and I'm really interested.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if I can see it, what you're doing, through the reflection of your sweet sunglasses.
What am I doing?
I don't know. You open some shit. I can't see it.
But but yeah, I mean, things maybe aren't going so bad because I guess the heist happens, and Jimmy's really happy and all that. But then Tommy pays for what he owed.
Yeah.
And, well, that's when you start to see Henry like dwell even like further like down like this hole he's starting to dig himself.
Yeah.
He's he's seeing helicopters. He's got his brother stirring sauce. He's going to get hats, and then he gets in big trouble.
Sure does.
Big trouble.
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh my God, it was like, but that part, when like he ends up having an altercation with Karen about it afterwards, like about that stash, that last stash that was going to save him.
Yeah.
And the fact that she got rid of it, they absolutely 100% would have found that.
I love that scene in the movie. They would have fucking found it. No, they wouldn't have. Fighting over the Koshi.
Yeah, Ray is like, no, or Henry, excuse me, she's like, oh, they never would have found it. They absolutely would have found that.
Yeah, because they found a lot of other things too.
They're trained to find that stuff.
And it wasn't like just some like small baggie. Like it was like a big thing of cocaine that they had there. And I don't know why that's one of the funnier parts of the movie to me when they're arguing about it. Why did you do that?
I found it sad.
It is a little sad.
Because like he's so in the depths of not only being essentially in the mafia, but also this is really where the mafia as we know it was really unraveling at this point for a while, but he's still in this life of crime that he can't get out of it. He's so desperately wants to deep in his heart, and he can't do it. He just sees no way out, so he's helplessly in this, but he's also helplessly addicted to drugs and selling drugs. And that the one last bit he had, he blames Karen, his wife, for essentially trying to help him stay out of prison for even longer.
Yeah.
By flushing it, but that was what he cared more about than anything else. And he couldn't even understand in that moment that his wife was really trying to help him, but no, it was her fault for doing a bad thing by doing that.
Yeah.
And to watch him blame her and freak out on her the way he did and make her feel that, again, and she's been living in this hell for so long, and now she's just broken down. She's collapsed. And she's just exhausted and collapsed because she did this wrong too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that was like, that hurt to watch. I was hurt to watch that scene. But also at the same time, it's like, yeah, I can see it why it's comical to be.
I think just the argument itself. I thought it was very. I thought the acting is like stellar.
Oh my god!
Maybe
yeah,
that's probably why I found an amusement to it, because I was like, oh man, this is like feels like so legit. But yeah, the circumstances surrounding it are definitely sad when you break it down like that. Yeah, but now they're starting to wrap up towards the decision that Henry ends up having to make. He knows they're screwed big time. So he's got a decision to make. So he's like, do I I'm gonna end up getting killed probably. So I mean, do I break the rule that Jimmy told me, when I was just a child?
Right.
Do I do I save myself and rat everybody out? And he does. And one interesting part with that scene is like that man that they're talking to, he was legitimate.
Yeah.
Like he was not an actor. Like that was a real like U.S. Attorney that they were talking to.
Yep. Very interesting choice for that. Yep.
See, that's why you don't trust those New York mobs. Whitey Bulger, he wasn't a rat. He was a lot of things, but Whitey Bulger wasn't a rat.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sam.
But yeah, I mean, Henry and Karen end up saving themselves. They go into the witness protection program. Jimmy's arrested. Paulie's arrested. So Henry's pretty much living the rest of his life like a schnook.
Yep. Yep.
So the interesting thing about this movie that I think towards the end, and it's also a Scorsese film, but they're both based on true stories, that I felt like there were a lot of parallels to this in Wolf of Wall Street.
Okay, interesting.
The structure of it might going off the fact that they're both true stories to be, it's not just, we're going to pretty much copy and paste the same story. It's these are two things that kind of actually happened. And they just had similar structures. The main characters seemed very different. The way the movies ended seemed very, very different. There was that one, they have the heist here. They had the big, I think the Steve Madden offer, IPO in the Wolf of Wall Street. Just a lot of similarities, when I watched it. And I'll have to watch them again. But, I took away from that, and that's what I was kind of looking at too. I did not see a Rolling Stones song in that movie.
Oof.
Oh no.
But, I don't know. I don't know if either of you have seen that movie yet, but
surprisingly, I've never seen The Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh. Also surprising.
Sam's, if you watch it on YouTube now, Sam's expression. He's like,
that should be the cover picture for this entire thing.
I think I own it, so we definitely should watch it sometime.
All right, that's one I have to watch. Yeah. But yeah, I mean this. What is going on?
I take it back. That's going to be the picture.
Screenshot it.
have to censor this?
No, you don't. Nipple.
Oh my god.
Have
Well,
fun editing.
all right, everybody, that's Goodfellas.
You know, if there's anything we can learn from Goodfellas and from our friend Sam here, don't do drugs, kids.
There's many things to be taken from listening to this and watching this classic. But yeah, I mean, this is always the Goodfellas is always a movie I'm happy to revisit anytime. In fact, I will. I mean, it is streaming on HBO Max right now, but I also revisit it as many times as I want with the DVD right here.
Got it on Betamax.
You know what's weird about the DVD is that it's two sides. So like one side only plays halfway through the movie. So when you want to watch the other half, you have to flip the DVD over.
Wow, like a vinyl.
Yeah, it's really weird. I'm like, why is it like this?
It's not that long a movie.
No, it's 2.5 hours. I mean, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, this is a film both of the three of us definitely enjoy. I've definitely enjoyed diving into it a little bit more, maybe uncovering some stuff I didn't know about it.
Throw another mom classic at me, I'm in.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely be revisiting one at some point.
Yeah, there's a list of films that we actually haven't made yet that we're gonna. Why are you scratching the mirror? That's not me this time, I promise you. If I'm scratching the mirror right now, I'd be very concerned. But yeah, we have to put a list together of other movies we need to watch and talk about. Well, ones we've watched already we need to talk about.
Yeah, there's an endless amount to choose from. Yeah, I'm cool with that. The fact that this was the second one that we got to visit. Yeah, I mean, it's been fun talking about it. I've been talking about it with Sam, been talking about it with Ken. Thanks for joining in on this.
Oh yeah, it's been a good time.
Whether you've been watching us on YouTube, we're also streaming, episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Podbean. What? I'm gonna have to talk with Sam after this is over. All right, thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you for the next one.
Clamming is out.